Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. Poland has reintroduced border checks with Germany and Lithuania to curb illegal migration. 52 checkpoints were placed on the German border and 13 were opened on the Lithuanian border. The measures took effect at midnight and will remain in place for 1 month. Despite just starting, the move has already drawn criticism from border communities. Our reporter Zuzanna Jurek is in Zgorzelec and has the story. Good afternoon, Zuzanna. What is the current situation like and how are people reacting? What's the mood like?
Good afternoon, Marie. So as you mentioned, these checkpoints will be in place for at least 30 days with the possibility of an extension already being floated. We've seen what some of these border checkpoints might actually look like in practice. 2 cars this morning have been stopped, one on the way into Poland, the other one on the way into Germany, with border guards bearing civilian clothing, stopping these cars, searching them. However, the drivers have been able to be on the way within 5 to 10 minutes. Now, over the course of this morning, we've also had a chance to speak to some of the local people here, and whilst majority of them have underlined that they doubt the effectiveness of these measures, some of them citing that it's the waste of taxpayers' money, others saying that actually they're more necessary on the eastern border where Russia is waging its hybrid war against the region. Others have, however, emphasized that they agree with the argumentation extended by the Polish government, and that is that this is a necessary measure to ensure the safety and security and territorial integrity of the country. But this is what else they had to say on the subject matter.
We don't know who those people are. They pretend to behave, but you can see what's really going on. So after all, we bear some consequences. We cannot allow ourselves to be scared in our own country. I think it would be good if the borders remained open, because after all, we're a united Europe. However, when the issue is safety, then it's worth it. In my opinion, the safety of citizens should take priority over openness, and once the situation calms down, we can go back to what it was like before.
Now, although these border checks, as I've already mentioned, will be in place for 30 days, we've already seen some immediate effects of these. That includes the infiltration and the stopping of an alleged smuggler on the border with Lithuania overnight, who was allegedly carrying 4 Afghani refugees on the way into Poland. Additionally, we've already had some responses from the nearby countries. That includes Lithuania and Germany. The Lithuanian President Nausėda has already emphasized that this is a necessary step to ensure that to address the porousness of the external EU borders, that is the eastern frontier of the region. But the German president, on the other hand, has emphasized that although Germany has taken similar steps as early as October 2023, he now hopes that Poland's move to do the same will not impede and will not have any adverse effects on the Polish-German relationship in the long term. We will, of course, continue to monitor the situation closely on the ground and as it continues to unfold. But for now, it's back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Zuzanna Jurek, reporting with the latest from Zgorzelec. That was the latest on what's happening on the border with Germany now that Poland has reintroduced border controls. Let's hear from our Vilnius correspondent, Yevgeny Rusakov, on the situation on the border with Lithuania.
Polish Interior Minister Tomasz Siemoniak assured that the move by Warsaw was not directed against Lithuanian citizens. His counterpart in Vilnius, Władysław Kondratowicz, expressed his understanding of Poland's decision. He also underlined that both Lithuania and Poland share a common challenge which needs to be tackled together.
The Lithuanian side does not plan to re-establish control, but as I have said many times before, additional patrols and reinforcements will be organized along certain sections and in certain directions.
Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda also said earlier that the kind of internal control that is taking place in the Schengen area reflects certain accumulated problems that we do not seem to be able to solve by other means. On the other hand, he said measures of this kind must be temporary and they must achieve a result and be completed as soon as possible. He also stressed that the flow of illegal migration through Lithuania, if any, is minimal.
We must remember that we also have the Polish and Latvian borders, because secondary immigration comes mainly from our north. So at that point, as I said, we are also working on the border with Belarus and Latvia, and we are working on the borders of Latvia and Lithuania.
The influx of migrants from the Middle East and Africa to EU countries from Belarus began in 2021. The West accuses Alexander Lukashenko's regime of organizing it. Since the beginning of this year, the Lithuanian State Border Guard Service, Public Security Service and Lithuanian police have started selective checks to stop secondary migration. From Vilnius, Evgeny Rusakov for TVP World.
Poland's decision to reinstate border checks has also sparked controversy and drawn criticism from academics. Piotr Kaczyński of the European Institute of Public Administration told TVP World that there was no legitimate security reason for the move, suggesting it was driven primarily by domestic political considerations.
It's clearly a narrative giving in to the nationalistic narrative out there that we need to protect the western border, which numbers do not justify that statement at all. There's a fewer flow of illegal migrants across the border than months and years ago. So there's no real reason to reintroduce those checkpoints. This is an activity of the Warsaw government, which is in response to the German government activity, which is also not justified, because maybe it has been justified when it was introduced about, what, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and by now it makes no sense, because those situations have been alleviated. Look, the far-right parties support both in Germany and Poland are on the rise, and this is a conservative government in Germany, and it's a center-right, center-left government in Warsaw, and they are competing against those nationalistic forces domestically, so they have to prove themselves to their public eye perspective that they are strong people in charge.
And now for the latest from Ukraine. In the last 24 hours, regional authorities reported at least 12 people dead with 69 injured in yet another attack on civilians. Russian forces targeted Kharkiv early Monday morning, injuring at least 27 people, including 3 children. The city's mayor, Ihor Terekhov, said Russia launched at least 2 Shahed drones, which hit 2 districts of Kharkiv. The first drone struck the Shevchenkivsky district of Kharkiv around 5:30 a.m. local time. Shortly after, 2 more explosions were heard in the Slobitsky district. 2 high-rise buildings were damaged in the attack, and a fire broke out at one of the sites. The head of the Kharkiv region military administration said that 3 injured, including 1 child, have been taken to the hospital in a moderately severe condition. The rest of the victims are receiving necessary treatments on site, and rescue operations are ongoing. A Russian drone also hit the southern port city of Odessa, killing 1 person and damaging civilian infrastructure. According to the head of Odessa Region Military Administration, Oleg Kiper, the attack struck a guardhouse near a newly built building, killing the guard. Heavy losses also occurred in the Donetsk region, with 7 civilians killed and 15 others injured in the attacks, according to Governor Vadim Filashkin. At 10 a.m., another drone strike targeted the city of Zaporizhia and the surrounding area. 10 people have been injured and civilian infrastructure has been damaged, including a university. The attack is still ongoing, with officials asking residents to remain in shelters. U.S. President Donald Trump called his latest conversation with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky a good call, but struck a very different tone when it came to Russia. Speaking about last week's exchange with Vladimir Putin, Trump said he was very unhappy with how it went.
You said you had a strategic call with Zelensky the other day. What strategy did you discuss?
It was a good call. He's being hit very hard, as I said he would. He's being hit very hard, and I was very disappointed.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump today in Washington, D.C. This will be the first in-person meeting between the 2 leaders since last month's joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike on Iranian nuclear facilities. Speaking before leaving for Washington, Netanyahu said his meeting with Trump could help advance a Gaza ceasefire deal. His comments come after the Israeli government sent its representatives to Doha for indirect talks with Hamas. Previously, the Israeli Prime Minister said that Hamas's response to a draft US-backed ceasefire proposal contained, quote, unacceptable demands. A Palestinian official familiar with the talks said the negotiations revolve around implementation mechanisms and further hostage exchanges. Netanyahu's US trip could also have implications for Ukraine. In an interview with TVP World, Polish radio correspondent Wojciech Cygierski noted that Ukraine may face difficulties securing further US military aid if Israel requests additional support, as its needs could take priority.
Well, it might also depend on what will be the outcome of today's visit of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to US. Because right now, US is very actively supporting Israel. The conflict with Iran is right now in the face of, well, the war is over, at least for now. But the thing is, if Netanyahu would ask for more military help to Israel, then it will be prioritized by some natural things that Israel is much more important to US than Ukraine, even if it would be, as you've said, not giving the weapons, but selling the weapons.
U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine Keith Kellogg has been selected by Donald Trump to represent their country at the annual Ukraine Recovery Conference, aimed at shaping a sustainable reconstruction of the war-ravaged country. Held in the Italian capital Rome, the high-profile event is expected to be attended by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as a throng of EU leaders, including European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. It remains uncertain whether the US delegation will comprise any other senior official alongside Kellogg. The event brings together officials, international organizations, financial institutions, and business leaders whose aim is to sustain global mobilization in support of the reconstruction and modernization of Ukraine. The conference will be held on July 10th and 11th. Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof and Minister of Defence Ruben Brekelmans visited Poland to discuss a deepening defence and economic ties with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The two countries signed a memorandum on defence, which, among other things, involves Dutch F-35 fighters patrolling Polish skies.
We just witnessed the signing of our Memorandum of Cooperation on Armaments, Armament Policies and Industrial Cooperation. The agreement is a model for others. If collaborations between allies in Europe looked like this, we would be much further in the defense of our countries and Europe as a whole.
With war raging on the continent, defense cooperation is no longer a nice-to-have, but a need-to-have. We are lucky to have a partner like Poland that has known its threats for a very long time, that in an impressive manner defends and arms itself against such threats. The provisions under the memorandum allow Poland and the Netherlands to cooperate on rearmament, development of military technology, logistics and training of soldiers, for example with joint exercises. I also expect that there are many opportunities for Dutch and Polish businesses to jointly contribute to strong and stable supply chains within the defense industry. Because only through collaboration in purchasing, development and materiel production can Europe stand for our security.
Outgoing Polish President Andrzej Duda is on an official visit to Prague, one of his last foreign visits before he leaves office. In the Czech capital, President Duda held bilateral talks with his Czech counterpart Petr Pavel. They last met at the recent NATO summit in The Hague. At a joint press conference, Poland's outgoing president said he's convinced that close cooperation between Poland and the Czech Republic will continue under incoming President Karol Nawrocki.
The Czech president and I spoke about the future. As you know, on August the 6th, Polish President-elect Karol Nawrocki will be sworn in. I assured the Czech president that I am convinced that the policy of close cooperation between the Czech Republic and Poland will continue.
A 63-year-old woman was killed in the Italian city of Milan when a tree fell during a violent storm. Firefighters were called into action more than 80 times during the storm, with most of the incidents involving falling trees, flooded basements and torn advertising hoardings. 2 towns in northern Italy have been affected by heavy rains. All the while, temperatures remained at around 30 degrees Celsius. This comes amid scorchingly high temperatures across Europe, believed to be behind the deaths of 8 people on the continent. And this concludes Midday Report. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.